When are we live? Welcome in, everybody, to the official Butthole Podcast, episode 253. In this episode, we will be talking...
man. You got more fire than that. This is episode 253.
This is episode 253. In this episode, we're going to be talking about fantasy football running backs. Gage's Rage is going to bring back his segment from last week, Fantasy 101. He's got something dialed in for that. We're going to be getting into Michael Thomas's ankle surgery that was just announced at the end of last week, Cam Akers' injury, as well as the top 20 running backs for 2021 and 22. We'll be kicking off the episode talking Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. Welcome to the show.
Let's go. Feels like we just talked to you guys, and we're back.
Here we are again. Intros came a long way since the Space Jam cover.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
Still got a long way to
start things off, you guys, it was a busy day for Green Bay. Their general manager and whatever the fuck the other guy is met with the shareholders today at 11 in the morning.
Which is like anyone who bought shares in it or like legitimate shareholders?
No, all fans.
Holy shit.
And there was actual fans at the press conference too. I don't know, obviously not all of them, but there was some notable things that came out of it. First off was right before it, this over the weekend, the Devontae Adams stuff broke with the Packers, that they haven't been making any progress on contract talks. They broke off contract negotiations. The general manager, Gutekunst, and I think it's president of football operations or something like that, they call it.
Is that like Mark Murphy?
Yep. These two jabronis get up to the mic, start talking. People are just blowing them up about the Aaron Rodgers situation, because why would you not?
There's the Last Dance gate, a lot of stuff going on.
And I think a lot of it, Rodgers wanted to be this way. I think he wanted these guys to go into this with their feet up to the fire, because Rodgers is Rodgers. But after the press conference, after they said some stupid things, like their biggest asset to their organization is Lambeau Field, not Aaron Rodgers, right? Most people would think number 12 is probably their biggest asset.
I mean, if you're looking like the grand scheme of things, obviously 12 is expendable at a certain point. He's going to be gone. The stadium's going to be there. I could see his point, but it doesn't look like good PR for his players.
Motherfuckers won one Super Bowl. Let's not act like he's bigger than God and football in general.
Okay, this is what all comes back to the point, though. Green Bay has been bending over backwards now to appease Rodgers after they pissed him off when they thought he was washed up and drafted Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers now came to the table. They came to a new contract that gives Aaron Rodgers an out after this year. I think, I'm not sure if reporting is true or not, but I believe that hinges on them having the ability to get Randall Cobb. If they get Randall Cobb, Rodgers will sign the contract. I'm pretty sure that's in it.
Randall Cobb has a decent contract as well.
Yeah.
What, like $8 million a year?
So but we can get into more details on the Rodgers one. There's a lot of things, but his deal that is going into this year allows them to open up more cap space for this season.
Yes. So long story short, Aaron Rodgers has agreed to a new contract with the Green Bay Packers that allows him an out after this season, the 2022 offseason. He'll be a free agent. He will, however, be reporting to camp. I think they report tomorrow.
I think it's the 28th, so Wednesday.
Okay, so Wednesday.
Pretty sure. Randall Cobb is getting paid. His cap hit is $10 million this year. It's a brutal hit for them to get Randall Cobb back there. Now, they need a player like him to come back. I mean, they have Devontae Adams. They got Randall Cobb. They got Amari Rodgers. Like, they'd have the weapons and no excuses.
And would Randall Cobb be open to... Is this the last year of his contract?
I believe so.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't restructure if I was him then.
It is.
Yeah.
You can just follow Raj wherever he goes to next
year.
year.
Take that money.
But
he's got one more year in 2022.
But I think there's almost no guaranteed money on it.
So is there any way Green Bay does this? Is there any way Green Bay follows through and pulls Cobb down?
I don't know. You would think with all the pandering that they've been doing, trying to get Rodgers back, there would be. But long story short, the plan as of now is Rodgers will be back with Green Bay at the start of training camp. He'll be playing for Green Bay this season. They're running it back one more time. Him and Devontae Adams, who has an expiring contract if they don't come to a new deal. And then it will be Randall Cobb as well as the rest of the Green Bay team. Personally, I think it's going to be a very, very interesting season.
If you're Devontae Adams, why would you sign a long-term contract?
You wouldn't. You'd want to just play this year and see what happens.
See what happens. Rodgers does have the ability to control his future in 2022 and 2023. So he can choose whether he wants to come back those years.
I did read about some caveats, but we'll get into that on the actual NFL episode, which will be dropping later this week. This is about fantasy football.
Absolutely.
I'm learning at the same pace you guys are. Gage has been teaching me a little things each week with this fantasy football 101.
Yes, and this week, we are bringing draft types for Fantasy Football 101. We want to talk about the different styles of draft. So we kind of alluded to it last week, but there's a pretty standard draft. If your buddy asks you if you want to play in a league this week, it's probably going to be a standard redraft league, is what we would call it.
When you say standard, do you mean standard Superflex PPR or just like standard league?
No, this is just a standard league, like the the fantasy football standard.
Okay.
So redraft would be you draft a team this offseason, you play the full season out, a champion is crowned. Next year, you all restart and redraft again.
And this is the majority of people. If you just want to get into a league and you go to ESPN or NFL or Yahoo Fantasy Football, those are the ones you're going to be getting into. You can do all of them, but majority of them are just standard, one-off
redraft leagues.
And they are the best for beginners, too.
Absolutely. Get your feet wet.
If you don't draft well this year, next year, you draft a whole new team, another shot at it. Compared to a dynasty league.
Yes, a dynasty is where you were going to draft and you were going to retain these players for the entirety of the league. And the league is going to keep going year after year until someone wins the championship back-to-back years.
Or whatever parameters your league sets.
Yes. Yep. If someone is champion 5 times, then the league ends. Or, whatever your league decides how the dynasty is crowned, that will be determining who wins.
And there's so many different variations to that. A typical one is 2 years winning in a row.
Yep.
And then the league disbands, start over, draft new teams again. Keep that till a winner wins 2 years in a row. I saw an interesting one like last offseason, I think. And it's the Avengers or the Marvel one. So there's Infinity Stones and there's different ways to get Infinity Stones. And you have to get 5 of them. So having the most points scored in the league gives you one. Winning your division gives you one. You can steal one from somebody if you beat them in the playoffs. You get one for winning in the playoffs. There's so many caveats to it.
Nuts.
But the goal is to get 5.
Yes.
So there's different ways to get there, but that's a fun one.
I'm in another dynasty league where we actually assign contract values based off of our auction draft. So each year we do an auction draft. We get the player for that price. And then we have to set a contract on him. So then yearly, the contract expires year by year. And then the free agency pool gets re-upped. And you can free agent franchise tag players for the average of the top 5 at that position. I think if your guy is the top, then you have to add another $5 to franchise him. So it's pretty interesting that way, that it's not just keeping your whole team. You have to actually play with salaries and budget.
And Star plays in like a quasi keeper league.
Yeah. And it's not a monetary value, but it's draft position. So if I draft a player in, say, the 16th round, like I got Justin Jefferson this last year, I can keep him for 2 rounds higher. So he would cost me a 14th round pick
in this year's league.
And he goes up 2 rounds each year with a maximum of 3 years keeping him.
Okay, and that would be a keeper league. So very similar to a dynasty in a way where you retain players over different years, but it's not an entire roster.
Yeah, you can only keep up to 3 with no mandatory keeping at all, though.
Gotcha.
But at free agency, too, cost of 16. So if you stole one guy in the middle of the season, I got Odell Beckham this way, I got David Johnson this way. So you steal those guys, you're keeping them for the next 3 years at a 16 to 14 and 12.
That's dirty.
Yeah.
Sorry, go Brandon.
I was going to say another one that is probably pretty good for beginners is a best ball league. So best ball, you draft your team. You don't actually have to set a lineup.
Yep.
So you just draft players. The best roster you have that week will get automatically pushed out. And then, you're playing people like you would normally. It's a week-to-week matchup. But that way, if you draft, let's say, Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin, you don't have to decide which one's going to have a better week. It just automatically picks the highest one. if they're your highest scoring wide receivers, top scoring team wins. So you don't actually have to manage so much in season as picking a lineup. But, there is different ways to draft for that compared to a yearly league, because you can do weird stacks that way because it's not going to hurt you as much as a yearly will.
And then the last best league of all, the new league, the Guillotine League.
Let's go.
You could be out as early as week 1, or you could go to the absolute end of the season. After each week, the lowest scoring team, which you do have to submit a lineup, the lowest scoring team gets chopped. Their team goes to free agency. Everybody can bet on them. And the Butthole has some Guillotine Leagues actually rolling this year. So if you're interested in getting into one, shoot us an email at officialbutthole@gmail.com, and we can help you out with that.
You can reach out on any of the social medias as well.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of realizing that was more league types instead of draft types. But I mean, there's auction, there's snake, there's a lot of other draft types too.
Draft and league types.
Yeah, we meant the same thing.
Yeah, the way you draft in those are completely different, but we can break down each one, a little bit differently. How you draft in a guillotine versus best ball versus yearly versus dynasty.
That'd be more like draft strategies.
There you go.
And that'll be coming up maybe next week. Who knows?
We'll see. Good teaser.
Fantasy 101 to come. Now, getting into some injuries, the top one is, well, let's go to the one that happened first. Let's go to the Cam Akers injury. Came down early last week after we had recorded on last Monday. Cam Akers tore an Achilles. He's done for the season. There's been some rumors, obviously, of all these running backs that the Rams might be interested in. There's people that are now catapulting Darrell Henderson up into a top 24 running back, which
who would do that?
I don't believe we have him as a top 24 running back as a group, but we'll get into that here later in the episode. Some people are actually offering Darrell Henderson for Jamar Chase in dynasty leagues.
I saw that.
That's just an absolutely ridiculous thing that somebody would try to do. So yeah, the Darrell Henderson hype's crazy.
Did you hear about that one?
No, I did not.
The Tog off cast.
Yeah, you'll love that one. It was,
and the owner actually, and the Jamar Chase owner actually thought about it. No, I'm just kidding.
That was in
so
our dynasty league.
BRB me. Come
actually,
on, man.
I'll just say his response to Darrell Henderson for Jamar Chase, the Jamar Chase's owner's response was get fucked.
Okay,
quite literally. So
should be.
But yeah, so the talk is, what are the Rams going to do? The Rams claim that they have a couple guys that they like on their roster. They have Xavier Jones, who was a 6th round pick, I believe, this year. And they also have, the name's escaping me, but he was undrafted. Funk. Those 2 running backs, as well as Darrell Henderson. And obviously, as training camp gets going, there will be a few guys cut. What do you guys kind of think the Rams do with their running back situation?
I think it's Henderson's job to lose. At this point, they let Malcolm Brown walk for a reason. I think they were confident in him as a backup behind Akers. Next guy up, he's done it before. He's only in his 5th year. They kept him for a reason.
Darrell, it's his 3rd year.
He's only in his 3rd year.
It's his 3rd year. Yeah,
he was like a 3rd, 4th round pick. I mean, they have some draft capital in him. It's his job to lose.
This is a team that is looked at as a Super Bowl contending team, and they need that run game to do it. There's a lot of free agents out there, but I think their best bet is to wait until the end of the preseason. Running back is not a position that they need training camp, that they need preseason. That's one you can kind of just switch teams and pick it up and hit this hole and you do it. I do believe whoever is their guy is not going to come through until maybe week 6, week 7. I think it is going to be a committee approach until then. And then at that point, we might see if they make a trade for one. They sign some guys after they get cut. If they go for one of these big name free agents that hasn't worked out over the last couple of years, I think by week 6, week 7, we'll know who the workhorse is going to be and who the fantasy power back is going to be off of that team.
And for all of you thinking right now, Todd Gurley is available, right? Everybody remembers him with the Rams. Sean McVay did come out today and said that they have zero interest at this point in adding a guy like Todd Gurley. So I think they're content with seeing what they got in Henderson. They kind of know what they got, but I think they're more interested in seeing what they have in the guys behind him. Sorry, Brandon, what?
To me, first off, give Funk a chance. I mean, that's a hell of a name. So if his name is actually Funk, you got to give that guy a shot.
It's a badass name.
Secondly, this team is built to win now. This is their window is now. They got a lot of big contracts. They got Matthew Stafford. They're not playing for 2 years down the road. To me, they have to bring in a guy. They have to make a move. Darrell Henderson, They drafted Cam Akers for a reason last year, and it's not because they thought Darrell Henderson was the answer. They think he's a nice piece, but they needed somebody else to add to that. To me, they have to make a trade for a player to get somebody. I don't think the free agents, maybe one might get cut that might be valuable come towards, closer to season. But I think there's a couple crowded backfields. I think Marlon Mack is a prime candidate, in my opinion. You got Jonathan Taylor, Naheem Hines. Mack was considered to be a top-end running back last year, poised.
Corn.
So my shit says I'm on.
Uptown, funk you up.
You have to switch to your mic.
Am I not on my mic?
I'm on my.
Uptown will funk you up.
What about
I think we are in. I don't know. This
what
might.
is KC's backfield?
So
look like
these
right now?
mics are dead right now.
Okay. All right. I think that's working. We had an issue. Gage has got to get back in the stream, so we're kind of sitting in limbo right now. So pardon us while you just look at Scott and I's. Hi, guys.
So, yeah, long story short regarding the Rams, we'll see what they do. I'd be surprised if they don't add somebody, but I don't think they're going to go make a big trade either. Moving on.
None of them will be big trades.
No.
But it'll be a guy like
Serviceable.
like a Jordan Howard type when he got moved from the Bears, or
Marlon Mack.
who is the Dolphins running back?
Is your mic on?
Miles Gaskin.
Not a dime. He's out of Boise State. He had like 3 good seasons.
I'm lost.
I'll find him. You guys can continue talking.
Moving
We're just
on.
working through technical difficulties.
Michael
That's
Thomas news.
Fucking A.
Michael Thomas. The news broke late last week, Thursday, I want to say. Michael Thomas needs ankle surgery. And is expected to be added to the PUP list, which means he won't be available until week 7. This was the ankle that was bothering him all of last year. Apparently, he tried rehabbing it in the offseason without going the surgery route, and it's just not responding the way that he wanted it to. He got through OTAs. His ankle's still not right, so he's now opted for surgery, and he'll miss the first half-ish of the season for the Saints. The Saints have been rumored to be looking at a few guys. It's not really surprised that they're looking to add a wide receiver of some kind. I think a trade Michael Gallup would be awesome because I think he would have long-term stay with New Orleans. He wouldn't just be a one-and-done type of guy. Otherwise, there's not a lot of options.
There was a guy who just got traded to Houston that would have been a nice option had they done this a little earlier, because I don't think they gave up much for him in Anthony Miller.
No,
not at
Someone
all.
of that type of status for a swap of some late-round picks.
Yeah, the thing with receiver, that's the same way. Some guys will get cut that you could sign that could end up being something for you. So we'll see what the Saints are doing. It's obviously not ideal that Michael Thomas is opting for surgery now.
I didn't realize it was half the season. I thought it was like the start of the season.
I saw a report today that he's expected to go on the PUP list for the first 7 weeks of the year. Yeah.
And another guy they could be targeting would be Van Jefferson. That was a name. It's going to be a little bit higher value to get a guy like him, but they got Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. They drafted Tutu Atwell. They got some guys there, Deshaun Jackson. So I think that's a possibility. To me, it's surprising on how long Michael Thomas waited to get surgery. But the rumor I heard, he might have went into non-mandatory minicamps, ended up tweaking it, late May, got surgery in June versus right away in the offseason.
The talk of
Jay Ajayi was the guy's name I couldn't think of.
Jay Ajayi, yeah, you're right. Okay.
Because there's always those guys that have like a couple nice seasons, but aren't in the future plans, and then they get traded for something super low towards the end of the preseason. And even a guy like Kenyon Drake, when Drake went to Arizona and the impact he made, if they can nail on a $5 million running back from somewhere, go get him.
I'm trying to
go back to the.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, back to Cam Akers.
Well,
I don't think the Saints have to do anything because I think they're in rebuild mode.
Yeah, most people would probably agree with you, to be honest with you.
Now, one question is, how does this raise the value of the players that they already have on roster? Traquan Smith.
It does. I don't know that it really helps the receivers that much, but it obviously sends Kamara into another atmosphere.
True.
Kamara last year when Thomas was dinged up, the amount of receptions that guy got was ridiculous. He's their only dynamic weapon now on offense. I mean, you got to remember last year when Thomas was out, they still had Emmanuel Sanders who ran a lot of routes. He was very functional, but he ran a lot of routes.
But he was there.
Yeah. Traquan Smith, he might in a situation where he might break out. I think a big-time guy now who already had steam.
Yep. Troutman, tight end.
Yep. So I think Troutman now, especially down in the red zone, could be a big-time target. He's a big 6'6" guy. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some receiver that we're not thinking of that ends up popping up.
They got a fewer guys. I don't remember the names. They're a little bit lower on that radar of guys. So to me, it's Troutman, Kamara, and Traquan Smith at the moment. If they could trade for somebody, that might change the game a little bit. But at the moment, that's the three for me.
I agree with that.
Callaway had a little bit of a breakout last year.
Yeah.
I think he was inconsistent.
And then they also got Lil Jordan, who just has a killer name.
His name's Lil Jordan.
LIL''JORDA and Lil Jordan Humphreys, been at Texas. It's actually good in college.
Well, that's the type of guy, though, that you don't think of right now that could end up busting out. Like, Philly's had a few of them in the last couple of years. Greg Ward, nobody expected it. Travis Fulgham, nobody expected it. There's obviously going to be routes to be had, so whoever jumps at it is going to get the opportunity.
Yeah. And all it takes is one diva to say they don't want to play where they are, and they might jump at that, too.
Yep. We'll see.
All right, one more topic before we move into our fantasy running backs list. Not terribly big news, but it's news nonetheless. Tariq Cohen put on the PUP list, so technically he doesn't need to miss any time of the season, but he can't practice until he's taken off the list. So I think that just has more to do with rehabbing that ACL. But does that move the needle for David Montgomery for you guys?
He was already moving for me prior to this, just the way he ended last season. And I think he's bona fide himself into the second round as a running back at this point.
So he is in the top 24 of your top 24 running back list.
In my actual list, yes. I'm not sure about this one.
About the average, you mean?
Huh?
And your actual list, he is.
My actual list, he is there. Turn your mic off, Brandon.
All right, I think we're back.
Yeah,
I think we're good. You know, the technical difficulties.
We had Gage's rage behind the scenes scrambling.
Quite literally.
And we're back here with the full group. So you don't have to stare at Brandon and I's ugly mugs anymore.
Yeah, full group and the full mic.
With that injury being locked in, why don't we now pull up our list of our top 24 running backs, and we can start breaking this thing down a little bit because the butthole actually took the time to put together a top 24 list.
Most of them did. And now you'll get my live opinions on stuff.
Star, you obviously
busy.
had Aaron Jones 1, AJ Dillon 2, right?
Yeah. My only I said I'll be the sheep, give me Eastpin's list, and take all Packers players off it. But now I'll give my actual opinions, and we'll see if my top guy's even on top.
Great. We're going to have to adjust on the fly. Thanks, Star.
No,
Lamar.
you don't. I'm just going to give you my opinions on our list that I'm seeing for the first time.
So here we go. Getting into, we'll start from the top, work our way down. That's how we did it last year. That's how we're used to doing it. Breaking down here from the number one spot, every single guy had Christian McCaffrey at number one. No surprise.
Yeah.
If he stays healthy this year, he's bound for a borderline MVP type season. Everybody knows it. Nobody's surprised to hear it. Number two comes in at Dalvin Cook, who every single person had at number two. Not surprising at all. We're all Vikings fans. We're all Cookie Monster fans. We love Dalvin Cook, especially in a PPR format, which is what this running back list was put together with the understanding of.
Those two are just a head and shoulder above everyone.
Yeah, so if we're talking tiers, right? Like we can kind of break tiers as we go here. Those two are in a tier of their own, right? That's the number one tier.
100%.
And this is full PPR.
Full PPR, yep.
Yeah.
I would almost put McCaffrey tier 1A, Cook tier 1B.
I think there's a real situation if they both stay healthy that Cook could outscore McCaffrey.
That's why I put them both in the same tier.
I agree.
Above everyone else. These guys could be just A, and then we start with one after that.
So then you go into our tier 2 here, which you look at Alvin Kamara, who averaged a 3.8. One person had him at 5 with me. One person had him at 4 with Star Lamar. The other two had him at 3. It's not surprising to see him as the number 3 overall running back on a PPR running back list. Number 4, the guy that just comes alive come December, the Yeti Derrick Henry. He's an absolute monster. Eventually he has to slow down, but nobody here thinks it's going to be this year. He's coming in at number 4. Number 5 is the guy that broke out last year and started off a little rough. He wasn't getting the carries he needed, but if he gets the carries that they were giving him at the end of the year, Jonathan Taylor comes in at number 5 with an overall rating of 5.5.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Historical running backs with Carson Wentz. How do they do?
It's almost been a running back by committee with Wentz for ever.
For a
But
while.
I was going to say,
is what
Phillip Rivers he loves throwing. I know that he wasn't getting all those throws, but he's just loved his running backs. And Carson Wentz worries that he's going to regress a little bit in this season.
I guess this is what I would say regarding Taylor and Wentz specifically. Doug Peterson never really loved running the football. Indianapolis, based on last year's precedent, and it worked for them, love running the football. They got the offensive line to do it. Carson Wentz has never been behind an offensive line like that. I think Taylor's going to get a lot of touches.
Do you think that has more to do with the fact that Rivers isn't mobile? Can't stay. I mean, the pocket was good because they had a good offensive line, but can't throw the ball downfield as far as Wentz can. I mean, Wentz still has a very good arm. So he can sling it more than Rivers could.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't affect as much. I have him as RB6 right now. And Nyheim Hines is the guy who would catch those dump off passes. He's their third down, scat back type guy. So if anybody's going to take a tank because Wentz wasn't passing to him, I feel it's going to be Hines more than his Taylor.
Yeah.
So Scott has Taylor at 3 on his rankings.
Yep.
That's how he sneaks in here really high. I mean, what puts him above Henry and Kamara in your world?
I just love the offensive line. I love the youth of his legs, and I love the offense that he's in for him. He's not going to have – I wouldn't be surprised if they keep Marlon Mack, if Marlon Mack ends up getting some carries, but Taylor's just in a league of his own. And I also think to actually add on to Taylor's argument, I think Wentz is going to be a better quarterback for the Colts than Rivers was, which is going to give Taylor more carries down at the goal line.
Okay.
This next guy here at numbers, would it be 8?
Number 6.
It'd be 6.
Yes.
This is the first one I disagree with, and it has more to do with just a feeling than anything. But I see a very, very big year for Saquon Barkley, and there's a handful of people up there I'd have him over. I just like what they've done in this offseason, and I think that depending on who you talk to, they might almost be one of the favorites for that division. I think Saquon is going to be the reason they do it. Couple bad luck years. They have a better offense now. There's a make or break for Daniel Jones, and Saquon's going to be the guy that does it.
I completely agree with you, Star. I think Saquon has the talent to be up in that God tier with McCaffrey and Cook. He's got the ability to catch the ball. The only thing he's got going against him is that ACL surgery he had was really late. It may be week 2, week 3, week 4 before he finally touches the field. So I think he could have an explosive, week 5 through week 13 could finish as RB, top 5 RB. But that first month in the season is really going to tell.
Is that what they're saying right now, that he's not supposed to be available for the start of the season?
Right now, he is not committed to being ready for the first of the season, which
he's no Adrian Peterson coming off of a New Year's Day game and suiting up week 1.
And honestly, for me, that's why I do have him knocked down a little bit. If he misses a game or 2 at the beginning of the season, I think he's good to miss 1 or 2 during the season. Right there, that's 4 games he misses.
I think he's got great potential. He's got the ability to be a top 5 back, but these other guys, with their stability and where they're at in their careers, I think just with Barkley's injury history lately and coming off that, I bump him down a little bit.
And let's remember too, regarding Barkley, with us having him at 6,
we're all working under the assumption McCaffrey and Cook are going to go 1 and 2, which means Barkley at best is going to be number 3. If we rank him 6 and he ends up at 3, it's not like we were way off.
Yeah.
And that's where Gage and I talked before the podcast, tiers.
And I would argue Barkley establishes the next tier.
So he's the start of tier 3?
No, Barkley is in tier 2, and that's where the cutoff goes to tier 3.
So you have Elliott in tier 3.
I would put Elliott and Chubb and Eckler and Gibson and so on and so forth down into the tier 3 and then tier 4.
I'd move Elliott up.
I would too. I'd have him in that tier 2.
Okay.
He's in the best shape of his life.
Dak's coming back.
That offense is going to be on fire. Tony Pollard is breathing on his neck. I think he's a very talented running back too, but it's not the same as a Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, where I know based off injuries is what happened last year, but they basically had an even split, and there's not one that performed that much better than the other based off of that even split.
If you're actually going based on our averages, the tier break would probably be after Chubb, because after Chubb, there's almost a 2-point break.
Yeah, then it goes into 10 is kind of where our average goes. And again, when we talked about tiers, you're looking at McCaffrey and Cook. You take those guys 1 and 2. After that, anybody in that second tier, I mean, Chubb and Elliott going at 3, maybe a little bit high, in my opinion, but those are the guys where they're all right around each other. So if you take a guy that you have a hunch on, it doesn't matter if they're ranked as RB7. If you think that they're going to have a good year and they're in that tier together, you can take them at RB3 and feel comfortable with it.
I would say, too,
Aaron Jones needs to be in that tier.
I wonder why he's not.
We'll get to that.
Because he's on the Packers and Aaron Jones sucks donkey dicks. I think Nick Chubb should be lowered just based off the fact that he has Kareem Hunt there. Kareem Hunt finished higher than him in points last year. Yes, there was an injury, but you have that guy that can do what he can do in the backfield. They're probably going to have more of an even split because they don't want him to get injured this year. Keep them both healthy. So I either knock Chubb down a little bit or bring Kareem Hunt up, but based off of what I'm seeing there. And David Montgomery, I know we haven't gotten there yet, but he needs to be higher too. How's Jonathan Taylor sent all the way up there?
We have
David Montgomery
Chubb.
finished higher than him. He was a second-year, third-year guy last year.
I'm going to have some beef with you regarding Montgomery. Chubb, we actually have ranked at 8, and you have him respectively ranked at 8. So I'm not exactly sure where your math's coming in here, Star. But number 2, I would argue C-Mac and Dalvin Cook should be the number 1 and 2 pick in drafts. In redraft leagues, PPR leagues, those two should be number 1 and number 2 drafted.
I mean, I think out of the first round, there should be probably 9 running backs selected.
Yeah. So basically,
my tier 2, it goes probably 10 to 12 players deep.
Yeah. So, okay, that's fair.
That's
I think
the way I feel.
Based on our average, I think it's okay to establish tier 2's cutoff after Chubb, and then tier 3 becomes Eckler, Gibson, Mixon, so on and so forth. I do want to ask really quick, though, Gage, regarding Chubb. You have him at 12, which is a little bit lower than everybody.
Yes.
What do you not love about Chubb this year?
Does not catch the ball as well as Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is the pass catcher. He's got a better running back that will do it better. Chubb is a great running back. No doubt about it. He's probably one of the most skilled runners behind only Derrick Henry, I'd say. But he does not do enough in the PPR league to be a top 10 guy in my eyes.
Okay, that's fair.
How about you with Eckler? You're the only one who has Eckler ranked at above 10. You have him at 14. The rest of us are being a top 10 guy there.
Yep. Okay, so regarding Eckler, the reason I have him a little bit lower is I think that the Chargers have so many weapons, and Herbert is a guy that likes to push the ball down the field a little bit more. So I think Eckler's going to come in a little bit lower than everybody thinks.
So many weapons?
Yeah.
They just got rid of Hunter Henry. What weapons are you
Dude, they have
about?
a tight end on their roster that they like a lot. I don't remember his name, but I think he could end up being a deep sleeper tight end.
Eckler gets like 90 targets a year. Eckler's been damn near step for step with Ezekiel Elliott since he's been starting.
The other thing that factors in with Eckler's injuries, Eckler almost gets hurt every single year.
Eckler's got a chance, if you drafted him at 14, to be a top 5 running back this year.
So
He's good value.
Going back to Nick Chubb last year with the injury, obviously he was out for 6 weeks, but on per game average, he was 1, 2, 3, 4. He was RB7 on a per game.
Per game's fucking shit. A per game average is just doggy dookie.
That just shows when he was in and Kareem Hunt was in, he was ranked RB7 overall.
Kareem Hunt was in every game he played in?
Yes, Kareem Hunt played every game last year.
Okay. I mean,
so he has the ability, playing all season, you can kind of, assume that he kind of keeps that pace, maybe goes down a little bit, but he's still going to be an RB1.
He also got hurt.
Yeah, for 6 games, and then he came back and he played really well in the
So there
second
were
half of the
6 games
season.
he didn't play. He came back and played healthy against a bunch of guys who were banged up. He had those 6 weeks off. That could do a lot with how he played in the end of the year.
He's also coming back after being banged up. So there's a little bit of leeway there. I'm just saying that Nick Chubb did finish as on a per average game basis as a top 10 guy.
Another quick programming note here. When you're looking at this list, you see the left side shows numbers that don't correlate with really anything from the player's name over. That's all Fantasy Pros PPR ranking for these players. So our average is stacked up against Fantasy Pros per game average or Fantasy Pros player ranking going into the season.
So you're going to see that on the right. Our standard deviation is actually how we have these players ranked.
Correct. Next down the list, you go to Antonio Gibson, 2nd-year guy, had a really nice season last year. We're all pretty high on him. We have him as an RB1. There's really nothing big time to say regarding the guy. We're all high on him. He's a really good value, especially if you're going to be getting him at somewhere in the 2nd round of a draft.
And if you hear it from Ron Rivera, he's Christian McCaffrey 2.0.
That's true. He loves him, as do we. Next down the list is Joe Mixon, a guy who disappeared last year due to injuries. We're a little bit scattered on him, but we all still like him into that end of the 2nd round in drafts, early 3rd round. Joe Mixon is sitting on a very big season if he stays healthy this year. That's always the question mark. Tied with him on standard deviation, the first rookie on the board, Najee Harris. Sorry, Brandon.
I was going to say ESPN over here. How do you feel about Mixon? Would you put him at 11?
I would have Harris over him personally in that division, but I've had him a couple years, and we always talk about the players you have that don't work out, how it just kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth. So I do have a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth from him, but I still in that range. There's a couple of players I see here underneath him that I might consider over him, just taking a flyer on. Harris being one of them.
Aaron Jones.
But no.
Technically, in your ESPN rankings here, you do have Najee as your RB10 and Mixon as your RB11. So that would fill in right.
Gage, Aaron Jones or Joe Mixon?
Aaron Jones all day.
Yeah.
Give me Joe Mixon.
I'd take Joe Mixon, but that's a bias.
Regarding Najee Harris, Gage's Rage has Najee Harris at 18. We all have him at Star has him at 10, Brandon 11, me 12, respectively. Gage's Rage, give us your input regarding Najee Harris and why you have him a little bit lower.
I think he's a very talented guy, and I think he could have a very successful career. I just don't think his first rookie season behind a really, really terrible offensive line and with a very old quarterback in Big Ben.
But a revamped, different Big Ben.
Yeah.
You see the pictures?
He gives a shit about health now. I might take a page out of his book.
He's about 20 years too late. So I don't think this is his year. I think in the next maybe 2 to 3, 4 years, he could absolutely be a top 10 running back. I don't think his first season will be the one.
Coming up on next episode, did giving up masturbation ruin Big Ben's career?
Yeah, and we will be breaking that down. Gage's Rage will actually put behind the lines as we hide him in Big Ben's closet at his home.
As far just another point about rookie running backs in general, last year might have been a little bit different than years prior to that. But last year, a lot of the rookie running backs didn't even pop until week 10 or beyond.
Risk factor.
So that, I had Edwards-Helaire in the first round. I think I took him 6th or 7th overall, thinking this guy's going to the best offense I've seen in my entire football watching career. Like, he's going to be a no-brainer. Didn't work out that way. Obviously, it wasn't until Gibson, who was kind of a surprise guy, and Taylor started to pop off at the end of the year. Akers had a couple games, and that's when they really did it. So it kind of makes me scared
by it too.
Yeah, a little bit on the rookies, but there's something different about Najee and something different about the feel of him. He just seems like he was born to play Steeler running back.
You know how, like, when
I see that
some of the great running backs come into the league, Adrian Peterson, for instance, he was just physically built different, right? Yeah. Najee Harris is physically built different.
I mean, he's also 24 years old.
Yeah, he's a man.
He's a man.
That means this might be his prime.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about this quite a bit leading up to the draft. But
this literally is his prime. 24 to 28 is going to be his best years.
Yes.
That's like that's science. That's literally science for running backs.
Absolutely.
I do want to say really quick, jumping down a couple. Chris Carson is obviously in there at the next spot. Aaron Jones. There's an Aaron Jones overcorrection because Star Lamar hates Green Bay players, which is completely fair in my book. So he has him actually ranked at 30th, which I think is a little high actually, but nonetheless,
I think that's the lowest number I felt like we could go.
Wait.
But I messed this list up when I put it all
Scott,
together.
yours is 31 then? Because you thought 30 was a little high? No, that says 9.
no, I'm tongue in cheek. I would draft Aaron Jones gladly at 9. Do you think there's any sort of a overcorrection because of last year for Edwards-Helaire? I think him at that value could be an absolute steal of a player.
Yeah. He did have how many, and this is a knock against him, but also a potential in the future. How many goal line runs, like within a yard, did that dude just not get it done?
It was a lot.
He's left 4 or 5 touchdowns on the field last year, easy.
There's
If he
some
can
guys
figure that out.
are not finishers.
Yeah, but he's also was a rookie. You
Yeah.
said you don't see it in the first year with Najee.
And
Maybe this second year with
Pretty quickly, they came in and brought in Lev Bell.
No. Let's remember
but he
though.
didn't do anything either.
Let's remember
He had a
though
few
this
good games.
Chiefs offensive line, what they've added: Joe Thuney, Orlando Brown. They've beefed that thing
They
up with
brought
some
back,
absolute beefcakes.
That Tariff,
Long,
he was an opt-out last year. Chris Long.
Kyle Long, but he
Long.
got injured already, I think.
Oh,
If I remember correctly.
Nonetheless, that offensive line is built to be absolute road graders for for Edwards-Helaire. He comes in overall at running back 15. I think if he was to finish on some of those goal line carries that he couldn't last year, he could easily be a top 12 running back.
an RB1.
Next up, DeAndre Swift, which is Gage's absolute love child. So I'll let Gage touch on him first.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Literally.
he's got a ton of opportunity. He really showed his pass catching chops. He had that rookie mistake. I think it was in week 1 or
Week
2.
1 when he dropped it.
Dropped the game-winning touchdown in the
Mhm.
end zone. He took his lumps. He learned a lot. And I think with the absence of basically any name on wide receiver core, a really, really bad team and a receiver converted running back. No, that's Gibson.
That's Gibson, yep.
I mean, just a running back who can catch the ball as well as Swift can. He's athletic. He can make some moves. I think he's primed.
Did they
to
bring
break
in
out.
anyone? Or was it just talk
Jamal
about
Jamal
Williams?
Williams.
Jamal Williams. That's
Yeah.
who they brought in.
So he's going to fight him a little bit. But yeah, Swift they drafted him for a reason. The issue is they have all new management in there now. Head coach, GM. So it does pose a little bit of a concern because a lot of these guys like to bring in their guys.
Their guy. Sure.
Next up on the list, we'll group these two together, J.K. Dobbins and Josh Jacobs. They're both in shared backfield situations, but they're the number 1 running backs in those respective backfields. I think in a PPR situation, it's a toss-up between the two. J.K. Dobbins probably has more upside than Josh Jacobs, but I think he also has a bigger risk than Josh Jacobs just because there is no guarantee with Gus Edwards that he gets all the goal line carries.
And we have them as our RB17 for Dobbins, RB18 for Josh Jacobs.
So regarding those two, I think the value is there on both of them. I'd be okay adding those guys, especially as an RB2 to my team. But I think they both have upside of being an RB1 if you decide to go elsewhere beginning of the draft.
Like you mentioned, I mean, Jacobs is going to be fighting Kenyon Drake, but he's going to be more of the bell cow back. Dobbins will be the bell cow, but he's got Gus Edwards, and then he's also got his running back quarterback and Lamar Jackson, who's going to be taking away some goal line attempts from him as well. So it's a little concerning. I don't know if the touchdowns are going to be there for Dobbins as much as we want, but I do think he's going to get a hell of a lot more involved this year than he did last year.
Yeah. Next up is the ever so polarizing, not just within the butthole, but the fantasy community as a whole, David Montgomery. I think the biggest thing I say regarding David Montgomery is he ran against the worst. It was the bottom 4 rushing defenses in the league last year, the last 4 weeks of the year, and he absolutely ate them alive. Now, I like him as a running back, but I think that's something to factor in.
Also, one thing you're forgetting is football wears on people. And that last month, December, you can really mash the run game. We see Derrick Henry do it, another big body, and David Montgomery. It shows that those early week 1, week 2 games where he gets that 60, 70 yards a game, it turns into 150 week 15.
Is he going into his 3rd year only, too?
I believe
He's
so.
going into his 3rd. Yeah.
3rd year, high draft pick. He just didn't do it right away. And so I think it surprised a lot of people. I'm very hopeful that can transition into a decent career there at the running back position, at least for the next 3-4 years.
The best thing David Montgomery could have happen to him is Justin Fields is what everybody thinks he is.
Yes.
If Justin Fields comes and brings a little bit more of a dynamic playmaker to that offense, David Montgomery, who is a dual threat running back, will benefit greatly.
What I love about Montgomery the most is how many stats he put up in week 17. That's probably my favorite part.
Fuck you.
Me too. And that has absolutely escalated his overall ranking last year. To me, the next guy on the list establishes the next tier break. I think Miles Sanders, after that, there's a clear break off to the next set of running backs on our list.
Hunt doesn't deserve to be in that next one.
You think he's higher?
Yeah.
He's in that tier.
I think he's the safest backup running back to start every single week.
Without a doubt. In a PPR format.
So Hunt, in your opinion, is a very, very good RB2.
I would take him as my RB2.
Yeah.
To me, I probably make a tier break after the Chubb. I think it breaks in our rankings after Aaron Jones. I think you lump all those guys together. And I think Edwards-Helaire, Swift, Dobbins, Jacobs, Montgomery, Sanders, they're all kind of in that same range for me. But I would be taking Chris Carson well over Miles Sanders. I'd be taking Joe Mixon well over Miles Sanders. If you get into having all those guys available between Helaire and Sanders, that's where I'm going to have a little bit more trouble.
Actually, I can see that argument from you because I don't think it would be a ridiculous season to see somebody like Miles Sanders or even, Josh Jacobs. I just don't see that those two have the upside to get up into the top 10 running back situation
where the other guys do.
Where the other guys possibly could.
Yeah.
Well, week to week, yes, but not over the course of the whole entire
Jacobs
year.
will have multi-touchdown weeks.
Yeah, Jacobs might have a week or two where he's actually RB1 because he could get 3 rushing touchdowns, which
And
he's
100
actually
yards.
known to do. Yeah. But over the course of the year, I don't think Josh Jacobs is a top 10 running back. Miles Sanders would need a lot to go right with that offense that nobody believes in. David Montgomery, if Justin Fields comes out in his rookie of the year, might get into there. But nonetheless, moving on here to our next set of running backs, we got Myles Gaskin at our overall number
20
overall, I think.
21.
And then Kareem Hunt, 22, Raheem Mostert, 23. Raheem Mostert actually has no rating from Gage's Rage. I think, Gage, you're high on Trey Sermon, correct?
Yeah, it's just so muddied up.
Yeah, which San Francisco always seems to do with their backfield.
Love to run the ball, without a doubt, but I just don't trust his health.
They brought in Wayne Gallman. They have Jeff Wilson. They drafted Trey Sermon. Mostert, I think, is poised for a good year, but I don't think it's poised for a top-end RB2 year.
One guy that I really like here, if you're in a situation where you like to go 0 RB, meaning you like to take wide receivers and tight ends early when other people are looking running back, I think Mostert's a very good option to get you through the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season to where you can be hitting that waiver wire to try and get running backs after some injuries. I think Mostert, the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season is a solid start.
Or if you draft enough depth at wide receiver, tight end, you could use those as leverage to get another guy in that range.
Kareem Hunt, like Star Lamar was saying, especially in a PPR format, he has a very high floor. His ceiling, I think, is limited, but his floor is very high.
Ceiling is limited to however healthy Nick Chubb can stay.
That's very true.
Because he missed 6 games last year and he ended as a top 12 running back, didn't he?
Kareem Hunt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe Kareem Hunt was RB7 through 16 weeks. I'll pull that
RB7 with only starting for 6 games.
I'm not sure that he did finish that.
He was RB8.
Okay.
Over 16
RB8.
weeks of
That's
the PPR
why I just
season.
feel like he needs to be in that next
Love
tier.
those stats.
Well,
I went through 16 weeks.
1 through 16.
did.
Yep, the only stats that fucking matter.
the next guy that we just talked about, Darrell Henderson, he comes in. I would put an asterisk next to that just because you don't know what the Rams are going to do.
Mhm.
A lot of people,
As it sits currently,
yes,
that's where he is.
which is all we can do this on is how it currently sits.
And even if they bring in somebody, I think Henderson has that ability to still be an RB2. I think they're probably going to lean on him more, even in the beginning of the year. If they bring in Adrian Peterson to take carries away, Peterson's going to take some time to get revved up with that offense. Same thing if they make a trade for anybody in the league outside of somebody that maybe has played with McVay before or something like that. But I think Henderson's going to see a good portion of those carries over the first 6 weeks, and then it might taper off a little bit. But I still think he's going to be more of their bell cow unless they go after a big name guy.
Agreed.
Henderson rounds out our top 24. Now we get into honorable mentions, which would be anything less than an RB2 on our mind or a top 24 overall running back. You have Mike Davis in Atlanta. Davis.
I think that's very similar to the Henderson situation.
I agree.
He's the best of what they got right now. You're going to get volume out of him until they find something better.
And he was very functional last year when C-Mac went down. He can be a functional running back.
He wears down over the length of the season. That's what we saw last year. But those quads, man, I don't know.
I don't think there's any reason to expect it to be different this year. If you draft Mike Davis and he comes out hot the first 6 weeks, look to flip him. And I think you could flip him for something pretty good. Maybe not a running back, but you could get a solid wide receiver, maybe a good tight end quarterback, whatever. One guy here that's really interesting to me is Travis Etienne. I think he's the most interesting running back outside of the top 20.
Because of his ability to catch.
You don't really know how Urban Meyer, who's an absolute maestro with running backs, is going to use him. At Ohio State, Urban Meyer used running backs in a lot of weird situations, and Etienne's an absolute Swiss Army knife.
Mm-hmm.
The Jacksonville offense as a whole is going to be interesting because Trevor Lawrence is fully capable of making every single throw on the football field and really pushing the ball downfield. So Jacksonville's offense, I love Etienne as a flyer here who has potential in my mind, high RB2 upside. RB1 might be stretching it, but RB2 is definitely a area that he could get into.
Which a flyer I absolutely love myself is Chase Edmonds. In Arizona, there's not really a clear decision on who the backfield guy is going to be, but early reports are saying Edmonds will get his first shot. So
I think Edmonds will be for sure the guy to between the 20s. Edmonds is going to get a lot of touches on that Arizona. The only thing that scares me with Arizona is they don't really show that they love to grind and run the football.
Well, I mean, they do, but with Kyler.
Yeah. And then, of course, too, when you have a running quarterback, goal line carries for running backs always gets fucked up. So we'll see. Remember, too, James Conner's there in Arizona. So if you're looking for a flyer on somebody, Conner might be a guy. I don't personally love him.
If you're 0 RB and you're taking a guy later in the rounds and he's there, it might be worth taking. I wouldn't take him unless I'm in, maybe like 9th or 10th round. I might take a flyer on a James Conner, but that might even be pushing it.
And then to round this thing out, we have 2 Denver running backs back to back, and we actually have the rookie ahead of no knees Melvin Gordon. Javonte Williams we have above Melvin Gordon, and that's exactly how I would draft those two. I would draft Williams over Gordon, given the opportunity.
Some omittance, not a single one of that very, very packed Houston backfield made it. And I wonder if it's because of their age or how packed it is, why that is the case.
The guy to own there, in my opinion, is Philip Lindsay. I think Philip Lindsay is the guy to own over David Johnson.
I think David Johnson.
I'd see David Johnson won me a championship last year, so I'd probably have to roll that way too. But there is 3-4 of them.
Yeah,
so, you don't know.
Will be cut.
Yeah, Mark Ingram, I don't think is going to make that team.
Yeah, and then also another big omittance, a guy who I think finished fairly high. You have his backup or as player who's drafted to replace him on here, and James Robinson last year did not make even the honorable mentions. Going back to the Rams now. Could he be a trade target if Urban Meyer doesn't like him? This guy is a second-year player coming off of a huge year. Depends what they want for him, but
if James Robinson goes to the Rams, he is a top 20 fantasy running back.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, I think he will struggle to get into the top 20.
He seems like one of those guys that has a great year and then gets pushed because of other people and gets the trade, like the people like the Jordan Howards and the JJIs and stuff like that. He kind of fits that mold that just happens so fast and unexpectedly that you don't really know why.
If I'm the Rams, I could make the call for Robinson.
That mold of guy, though, how well do they do in that second location? Generally not amazing.
No one expected to see what we saw from him last year. Not even the Jaguars.
I mean, he was
they didn't draft him. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, he's kind of the perfect running back for a guy like McVay. He's not flashy, he's not sexy, but he's in the right spot at the right time. He can eat up 15 to 20 carries. He's not going to demand the football in the red zone. You can still have your flashy weapon that you just traded everything for in Matthew Stafford, throw to Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
I would absolutely love if James Robinson went to LA. I would love it. That rounds out the butthole top 24 with a little bit extra running backs. In our next fantasy episode, we'll be breaking down the top 24 wide receivers. But until
I
then,
feel like we need to go more. We're sticking to 24.
the reason I kept
Top
it to
2.
24 is to try and keep the episodes from being 90 minutes. That's
Yeah.
literally the only reason why.
But as if we went up to 36, we could rip through those last guys.
We could talk
Okay.
about it.
Well, we'll talk. We might
All right.
do 36. We might do 24. Before we leave, Gage, you have a rage of the week.
Shit.
Apprentices.
You don't?
I could go off on apprentices, but
Let's do it in the
save
bit,
Yeah, we'll save the rage for the bit.
which will be posted later this week. Until then, prevent cancer.
Stay tuned and listen to our Aaron Rodgers podcast, and then forget about everything that has to do with him and go jerk off.
Bye.
But like, it's kind of cool.
It's